Hey Chickadees! Welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be going over the books I read in April. Last month I read a total of 6 books, 3 romance, 1 graphic novel, 1 fantasy, and 1 sci-fi. With that being said, let's get started with The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. So, you know how a year or so back I was just utterly gushing about this book? Well, this year I decided to reread it because I was really in the romance mood at the time, and my rose-tinted glasses instantly came off real quick. The parts where I was once giggling and kicking out my feet, like when Rowan was showing Zara how he cared about her secretly, or him talking about improving his employees' well-being, just turned into me being really aggravated and annoyed at this ignorant man and his first look into how the working class works. The way Rowan is just so up on his billionaire high horse that he doesn't even know anything about the working class was quite appalling, to say the least. Kind of made me wish I didn't reread it so I could reserve the warm feelings I felt the first time I read it. But a part of me is also kind of glad that I did, because now I'm seeing it with eyes unclouded from all the fluff and stuff I was reading through the first time. I'm giving this reread a 3.75 out of 5. Next book I read, or rather reread, was You Again by Kate Goldbeck. This was another favorite from last year, and it follows a stand-up comedian Ari and Chef Josh as they navigate crossing and uncrossing each other's lives. This book was heavily inspired by the movie When Harry Met Sally, and it shows in the way that at first they started by hating each other, to becoming friends, eventual Bane buddies, to put it lightly, to hating each other and ultimately becoming a couple in the end. I don't know why, but whenever I reread romance, the magic of the romance isn't as potent as the first time. Don't get me wrong, this book is still one of my favorite romances I read, but for some reason I wasn't as invested as the book as I was when I first read it. I even rewatched When Harry Met Sally for the second time to get in the mood for this book beforehand, but I guess I read it too recently to be hooked by the story like the first time. That being said, I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5. After that, I read one of my most anticipated books of the year, which is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is about Scully and Lucia, who one day gets caught using her little miracles magic by her patron and is eventually swept up into a competition to win the chance to be part of the King's Court and build up his armada. Along the way, she meets others with different abilities and experiences her first love in a world where both are constantly in jeopardy of being discovered by the Inquisition. Other than the basic summary of Lucia having magic and the hint that this was Leigh Bardugo's most romantic novel yet, I really had no idea what this book was going to be about. I was kind of taken aback that the majority of the plot was this competition put in place by the King's secretary. But once I reoriented my expectations, I was able to read it a bit easier. Her writing style in this book is kind of a mix of Ninth House and Six of Crows, in that we have multiple POVs, but they switch within the chapter. One thing I wish we would have gotten more of is the build-up of the romance between San Angel and Lucia. The most we got was them reading each other before her lessons, a few bits in their heads about showing interest in each other, and then all of a sudden they were just together. But other than that, this book was quite entertaining and very action-packed near the end. 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Unfamiliar Volume 2. This volume follows Babs and Sun navigating insecurities and a blooming crush, as well as Planchette and the others planning a wedding for a ghost. For the most part, we get into Sun's insecurities about her looks and how she doesn't feel good enough for Babs. I like how this conflict within Sun is carried from the first volume and it's not just a one-off thing, and how Babs and the others reassure her over and over again that she's cared and loved for. In a world that's so fantastical and quite silly at times, I appreciate how this comic tackles issues everyday people may face. I gave this volume 4 out of 5 stars. Following that, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. If you watched my mid-year freakout tag video, you'd remember that this was one of my most anticipated books from last year. Well, I finally got around to reading it, and it's not quite what I was expecting. Unlike Emily Henry's other works, which primarily follows the couple and their dynamic, this book breathes life into every character and the dynamics between the friends themselves alongside Harriet and Wynn's relationship. I say this reads more like lit fic rather than contemporary romance. The themes of home and belonging are constantly scattered throughout the book, and although it sometimes feels like it's hitting you over the head with it, most of the time it's pretty effective and true to what the book is going for. I appreciate how grounded everything felt in this world, and if it were adapted in the future, I wouldn't mind it. 3.79 out of 5. Lastly, I read A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I think this book is part of a series, but this first one follows a tea monk named Dex and robot Mosscap's journey to finding the meaning behind the question, what do people need? This book reads more like a slice of life with sci-fi elements in it, in the way that this book mostly follows them traversing the woods and talking about the world before robots were basically extinct or finding purpose in life. To me, this is a cozy short book to read if you just want to shout out the world for a bit and enjoy the woodsy vibes of the story. 3.5 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you when I see you. Take care, chickadees.